One license. Download, create, report. Once you're a subscriber, you'll have access to thousands of downloadable music image files from our catalog of member publishers, and our outstanding database will help you make sure the song or text you're looking for is covered. Creating worship aids, bulletins, and projections has never been easier. Search for your song and download high-resolution music image files, all in one place. By taking advantage of the most up-to-date technology, our website makes it easy to report the titles you use. This ensures authors, composers, and publishers receive fair compensation. Music directors, pastors, and their teams can report song usage 12 weeks in the past and 6 weeks into the future. And our convenient list feature allows you to store frequently used titles for future access, or to download your entire list of songs at the click of a button. One License offers annual, event, and single-use reprint licenses. Annual licenses are the economical choice for those who reprint or project music on a regular basis. Event licenses are great for retreats, conferences, and conventions that are up to 1 week in length. And single-use licenses are perfect for a wedding, funeral, or other one-time event. In addition to congregational reprint licenses, One License offers a podcast streaming license for churches to stay connected to their many members, and a practice track license for music directors to share recordings with choir members and instrumentalists to help them learn their music. The One License customer service team is here to help. Our intelligent ticketing system and phone support ensure that your questions are promptly addressed. Email us at info@onelicense.net or call us at 1-800-663-1501. We believe in the power of music to connect and inspire communities. One License allows congregations to make the most of our member publishers' music, providing access to the finest music for the worshiping assembly. Whether you're using our service on an annual or a one-time basis, we're proud to offer our support. One License, inspiring congregational song.
Well, hello, everyone. A warm welcome to each of you and a happy new year. I think we can still say that. Hello, everyone. My name is Brenna Cronin. I'm the general manager of One License, and I have the pleasure of helping lead this webinar today. So thank you all so much for joining us. We're just absolutely thrilled that you are here. The webinar is always held in the first quarter of the new year and is intentionally designed for your educational benefit. Of course, an added element to the conversation this year especially is churches posting their services online. So that will be a large portion of our conversation today. And I already see some Q&As coming in about that, which is really great. First, I want to acknowledge that webinars can sometimes feel like drinking from a fire hose, right? It can feel like a lot of information at once. So I want to encourage you to take notes, ask questions, and then also remember that you can always watch the webinar after the fact too. Then you can pause, you can rewind, you can hear things all over again, and really kind of go at your own pace. So if you have that kind of overwhelming fire hose feeling about anything that we're saying today, or if I happen to be speaking a little quickly just for the sake of time, just be mindful of the fact that we're aware of that too, and we're here in it with you. I would like to introduce our multimedia specialist, Sierra Ronning, and thank her for her outstanding efforts on that prelude video that some of you, if you joined early, you were able to watch. Don't worry, we'll also be showing it at the end. And then again, of course, we're recording this webinar for your future use. So Sierra, in that same drinking from a fire hose kind of headspace, can you share a little bit more information with everyone about how they can watch the webinar after the fact?
Absolutely. Our blog, news.onelicense.net, is an excellent resource for all the latest news from One License. We will be sharing this webinar on that blog in just a few days, so you can revisit it, re-listen to some of this information, share it with your team who maybe someone wasn't able to make it today. We will also be including a link to this webinar in our newsletter, which will be coming out Tuesday, February 23rd.
Thank you, Sierra. I know that accessing the webinar after the fact is usually super helpful for folks, especially those who couldn't join us because of time zone differences or because of other commitments. We are near 800 registered viewers today, which is just fantastic. And I want to offer a special welcome to those of you who are watching the webinar after the fact, whether it's later this month or later on this year. And also a special welcome to those of you who are watching from the UK, Ireland, Europe, Australia, or New Zealand, or anywhere else in the world that we happen to be helping you with your licensing. It's always, I don't know, hopeful to me that one day we'll find a time zone where all of us can gather at the same time. But until that happens, we have the power of technology to help us with recording our information. Now I'd like to introduce our assistant manager, Katie M. Deaver, who will share a few housekeeping notes for our conversation today.
Hi, everyone. Whether you are with us live today or are watching the recording after the fact, we are so glad that you are here, and we hope that the information that we're sharing in this webinar will help you to get the most out of your One License permissions. As Brenna said, I have a few housekeeping notes for you as we begin our time together. This webinar will run no longer than 1 hour in length. All you need to participate are speakers or headphones so that you're able to hear us. No need to have a microphone or a video camera or anything like that since you're an audience member today. I would also just invite you to take out a piece of paper and a pen or open up a Google Doc so that you're able to take notes throughout our session if that's helpful for you. Our webinar today is going to be divided into 4 parts. So first, Brenna's going to offer some best practices on copyright, as well as an external overview of the website. Then she's going to give you a look at the internal overview of our website so that you know what it looks like when you report and all of those important pieces. We're also going to share some information on a new website feature that we're excited about, as well as some special features such as copyright compliance, posting your services online, and our group licensing option. Finally, we'll wrap up our time with a live Q&A session at the end. So let's talk a little bit about that Q&A process. If you're here with us live, some of you have already figured this out. You can go ahead and click on the Q&A option at the bottom of your screen and then type your question directly into that box. I'll be monitoring that throughout our time together, and we'll do our very best to answer each of those questions live. Over the last few days, we've also received quite a few questions from different folks through our online ticketing system. So please know that we'll be including many of those questions today as well. If you're watching the recording or you have a question that is really specific to your organization, our online ticketing system is going to be the best and fastest way for you to get in touch with the One License team. You can email us at info@onelicense.net. or log into your account and submit your question through the contact link in the upper right-hand corner. One really wonderful feature of our ticketing system is that if you log into your account and then click that contact link that Brenna is screen sharing with you right now in the upper right-hand corner, all of your account information, such as your license number, your organization name, will automatically be sent to us along with that request. This is really helpful for our team and allows us to be able to find your account much more quickly, which we, of course, really appreciate. And additionally, when you do that, if you want to go ahead and write webinar in the subject line of your message, then we kind of know what inspired your question, and just know that we'll respond by email typically within 2 to 3 business days.
Thank you, Katie. I appreciate that. I'm especially appreciative of your very pastoral approach and educational approach to everything, so thank you. Folks, we get thousands of tickets, which is how we refer to emails, every single week. So contacting us, info@onelicense.net, is the absolute best way to get a hold of us. We typically are able to respond to tickets within 2 to 3 business days. So again, if you happen to be watching this after the fact, go ahead and send us an email. But of course, if you're watching us live, you can click on that Q&A. So I want to transition a little bit here to an overview of some copyright basics. I want to acknowledge that this information isn't usually taught. It's not a super, checkbox kind of piece of information in many college degree programs, even for music ministers. So I know that a lot of you come to us for your education, and we want you to know, moreover than anything else, we are here to support you, and we're here to help you with that educational piece. So I don't want anyone getting scared thinking that we have little tiny police cars. You're not going to hear any flashing, see any flashing lights or hear any sounds, but we're here to help. And we trust that you are also here because you want to do the right thing too. So a little bit about our vision for licensing. We have a proactive and educational approach to copyright law. A little bit about what I was just sharing. We know that you want to do the right thing, and that's why we're here to support you. We promise to offer you a song database that is clean and accurate, with now over 100,000 titles from over 300 different member publishers and their catalog. It's pretty impressive. Serve the global church. We especially serve Roman Catholic and mainline Protestant organizations, I would say. So if the music that you're looking for tends to lean more liturgical, it's likely under our service. If it tends to lean more evangelical, it's likely under a different service. But you can, of course, always check with the copyright holder to see what licensing agency they work with. We serve churches, schools, retreat centers, religious communities, funeral homes, retreat centers. I think I already said that one. You would not believe the number of different organizations that come to us for licensing. So really and truly, wherever the church gathers, wherever the church is singing, we're there and we're happy to help. So here's a list of just some of our premier member publishers. I'll show you a larger list and how you can search in just a moment. But hopefully many of the publishing entities that are listed here are copyright holders that you are familiar with yourself. So a little bit of a copyright overview, and I've got all this information on the screen at the exact same time for those of you who are meticulous note takers. So copyright is a form of intellectual property law. Copyright is a form of intellectual property right law. It protects works of authorship under any type of artistic medium. So whether that's literary, dramatic, poetry, novels, songs, even computer software can be copyrighted. Whatever the work is, it must be in a fixed, tangible medium. So you can't copyright an idea, unfortunately. If you have an idea, I encourage you to put it into a fixed medium and then get it copyrighted. So that way no one can claim other copyright to your idea. To use copyrighted music, you need permission, which is typically requested from the copyright holder. And in this case, One License has done that hard work for you. So we've done the work of securing the permissions. So you only have to go to one place, quite literally. So I just want to take a moment and acknowledge some of the difficulties that the last year has brought us. The last time we did a new user webinar, it was in February, that first quarter of the year, as I said earlier, but it was about 3 or 4 weeks before things really got difficult. They were already difficult, but even more difficult. March 13th is when we locked down here in Chicago, and it was striking how life changed and how quickly it changed. So I just want to take a moment with a lot of compassion and acknowledge that there are a lot of challenges that I know that all of you are facing, both personally and professionally. So not only does the pandemic bring difficulties, but there's also folks who are experiencing new roles and new responsibilities. Some of our organizations are in a little bit of an all hands on deck kind of moment where folks are doing things that didn't normally fall under their job description. So there might be some of these pieces for you today that are brand new. You wouldn't have ever considered that you would be looking to our website to help. And we want you to know that we acknowledge that as well. There's also an element of turnover, as we know, that comes with ministry as well. So we're mindful of all of those things as we have this conversation today. I mentioned earlier too that it's possible that copyright education just may never have been offered. It's not something that you had ever come across in a previous position or perhaps in a previous educational setting. So we're holding space for that as well. I think there was also an element in this last year of perhaps there being some confusion in different copyright practices. And I just want to be very clear that our member publishers totally and completely control their copyrights. We just happen to be the licensing agent for over 300 of them. So whatever decisions that they make about their own copyrights, if they gave gratis permissions, for example, for a certain period of time, that is well within their right to do because they are the owner of that copyright. So I just want to acknowledge that if some of you were confused about policies changing and different things like that, just know that it comes from a good place. It comes from a place of wanting to be compassionate and meet churches where they are and wanting to do the right thing. So if there was any confusion around, especially the pandemic this past year, just know that at any moment we're here to help and here to clarify the things that we're able to clarify. So I want to thank you all for being here and for taking that first right step. One of my colleagues here would often say that you wouldn't steal candy from a store. So we hope that you aren't stealing music either. I think the word that we typically use around here is lifting. We don't want you to lift any music. So perhaps softening that word steal. But really at the end of the day, I don't think anyone here or anyone got into ministry because they're not a good person, right? We're all here and we want to do the right thing. So we want to meet you there in that place. But one of the things that I do want to impress upon you, and the seriousness of it that I want to impress upon you, is that this for us is a justice issue. This for us is a justice issue. These are artists' livelihood. For many of us, we know these artists, we know these composers and these authors. We've met them at concerts or at conventions. We know them personally. This is their livelihood. So if you aren't reporting the usage that you are using through our service, there's no way that those royalties are being distributed appropriately. So if there's nothing else that you leave here with today, I hope that it's impressing upon you this element of it being a justice issue. If our artists and composers, if our member publishers are able to have their appropriate livelihood and the royalties that they're justly owed for music being used, then they're able to continue to grow their ministries and they're able to create even more fantastic music. So please, please, please write down, if you don't mind, this element of it being a justice issue. It's paramount. It's absolutely paramount for us. 93% of our license holders report a song in a given week, which is really fantastic, but you can help us make that 100. And as I mentioned earlier, royalties are paid to publishing houses, and then from there, those are dispersed to artists, composers, authors, and arrangers. So just in case you were curious about how that process works. So I'll take a little bit of a break here for Q&A while I transition my screens. Katie, do you have anything coming up so far?
We are getting lots of really wonderful questions, Brenna. So the one that I'd love to hear your thoughts on right now, we have a customer asking, I noticed on the member publisher page, some of the larger companies list multiple imprints that they handle. If the imprint that I'm looking for isn't on the list, but I know that the larger member publisher owns that imprint, should I assume that it isn't covered, or is it worth doing a manual submission?
That is a great question. And let me pull up that page that Katie is referring to here. So our member publisher page, which you can access from the homepage, this is where we list all of our member publishers. Folks, this page is being updated on a weekly basis, on a bi-weekly basis. I mean, we have new publishers that are being added every single week. So I would encourage you to always filter. So for example, I'm thinking of one of those copyrights that one of our member publishers administer. So I'm thinking of the Tate community. So the Tate community represents themselves, this is just an example for you, throughout the entire world, except for North America. GIA happens to control or administer, I should say, their copyrights here in North America. So if you happen to be in Australia, you would be seeing the titles that are under the Tate community. But if you're in North America, you would see the titles that are under GIA. So those copyrights, even though at the end of the day, they're held by the Tate community, they can often be administered differently in different territories. So if you happen, for example, We have the Christian Conference of Asia, we have Damien Music, etc. This is that section that Katie was just talking about, different imprints or subcatalogs. If you see something that you feel like is missing, go ahead and send us an email. We're happy to follow up with our member publishers and get some more information for you. It's entirely possible that they do administer or control the rights, but then for whatever reason, they aren't able to then bring those to one license. So maybe they have a way of licensing those works directly themselves. So send us an email. We're happy to do a little bit of investigation for you and be a middle person in that way. We're happy to reach out to our member publishers and just see what they have to say about that. But a great question. All right, Katie, anything else for right now?
I think that you are going to touch on a lot of them in your next section. So I think go ahead and kick that off for us.
Okay, very good. So I'll give everyone an overview of the external portion of the website, just in case this information is new for some of you. So I want to mention that we're primarily a reporting service and then secondarily a downloading service. So what that means, our most popular license, the reprint license, allows you to reprint works for your congregation from the member publishers that we work with. So you are not permitted to reprint music for your cantors, your choirs, your instrumentalists, your accompanists, etc. So again, we're primarily a reporting service for your congregation. So just want to make sure that that's really clear about what we cover and what we don't cover. If you're looking for permissions for instrumentalists, choirs, etc., you can follow up with the copyright holder directly and they can help you with that. But with that element of being primarily a reporting service, we're then secondarily a downloading service. So you'll notice that many of our member publishers post their downloadable images to the website, but it's seen as an added bonus. I want you to think of it that way. So when you're coming to us and there's those 100,000 songs that we have in our catalog, those are permissions that you have for the various different licenses to use them, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the content itself is going to be there. Many cases it is. A lot of our member publishers prioritize that information, but I just want to be transparent with you that that's why sometimes you can't find a copy of an actual file that you're looking for. Now, you are more than welcome to engrave the file yourself if you happen to have access to something like Sibelius or Finale. I know that there are plenty of churches that really like to have their worship aids all be in the same font, so you're more than welcome to do that. You're also welcome to get the music from one of our partner websites like hymnary.org or from the publisher directly. You can also Xerox right out of your hymnal, but again, that requires a reprint license to be able to do that. So just having the hymnal, purchasing that physical resource doesn't give you the permissions to reproduce something from it. So if you want to use the word reproduce as kind of a synonym with the word reprint, you can think of it that way too. So again, primarily a reporting service here to help you report your music, all of the works that you're using ethically, and then we pass on those royalties. And then secondarily, an added bonus is having those actual image files. We have a pretty simple 3-step process for those of you who are actually creating worship aids or projection screens, bulletins, leaflets, funeral booklets, wedding booklets, things like that. Downloading, creating, and then reporting what you're actually using. So while we aren't a worship aid creation service, there are so many different and creative ways that our congregations utilize the images that they can find on the website. So we have folks that are using Publisher, Adobe, Google Docs is my personal favorite. I can share it with other folks and they can take a look at it. Microsoft Word, of course, or a variety of other design programs. So while we ourselves don't have a design element, we're just here for your royalty administration, you are able to create those different resources. If you've joined me for a webinar before, you've probably heard my volleyball analogy. If you want to humor me for a moment, being the sporty person that I am, we're going to serve the ball to you, but however you get it back over the net, whether that's spiking, bumping, setting, dropping, kicking, perhaps for some of you, I want you to know that that creative element is entirely up to you. So you know if you're a projection screen church, and you probably also know if you are not a projection screen church, right? There tend to be pretty strong opinions about the way that projection screens are used. But whether it's a worship aid, a leaflet, in your bulletin, image, especially when we start to talk about our podcast streaming licenses, having an image within your video, all of that is totally and completely covered under our reprint license. We have some select member publishers that are listed here, but I also noted that page at the very top that you can click on. And then our news and announcements section here actually takes you directly to our blog. So our blog is news.onelicense.net. It is an absolutely fantastic resource that allows us to go a little bit deeper in a lot of different subjects. So you can search for the specific topic that you're looking for. So for example, if you're looking for more support around podcast streaming licenses, you can search the word podcast and you can take a look at some of our educational offerings. So if you want more information on reporting instrumental and choral titles, if you want to take a look and more in-depth look at our podcast streaming license, those are all available for you anytime. If you happen, for example, to be behind on your reporting and you're curious on how you can catch up on that, go ahead and take a look at this post, catching up on your copyright usage reporting, for example. So tons and tons and tons of resources that are available here. I'll also point out our year in review posts are really fantastic because they put together all of those top posts from that specific year. So instead of searching by title, you can click on this year in review, which eventually goes away once we add a new post, right? But you can click on this year in review post here, and there's some really, really fantastic resources. I think there's somewhere around 10 posts that are here that you can take a deeper dive into. So just in case we aren't able to get to that information today, I want you to know that that is absolutely available to you at any time. So if you want to take a look at purchasing different license types, you can look at our options and prices page. So our licenses are all divided based on average weekly attendance. And the average weekly attendance element is really important because we want to make sure that our pricing is equitable for each and every organization that comes to us. So you should be in a category that matches your average weekly attendance. Now we know that that number goes up around the holidays, it goes down around the summer. We know that attendance can certainly vary. So that's the reason why they're in categories. So category D, for example, it's our most popular category that allows you to have up to 400 people on an average weekly basis. Now, again, are you in big trouble for it being 401 on one weekend? Of course not. But there is an element of this being an average overall weekly attendance over the course of your entire year. If, for example, you happen to be in this category D, but you're having a one-off event, you're hosting a large conference, or you are having a outdoor mass for all of your local parishes to come together when we're all able to gather again, and you're expecting 1,000 people to be in a courtyard for something like that, purchase a single-use license. You'll be able to have those 24-hour permissions for a different attendance level, and then you'll be able to use that license appropriately for that specific event. Event licenses are great for anything that's up to 7 days. So perhaps a conference or a mission trip. Again, anything that happens within the life of your church or within the life of your parish is covered under the license. So your annual license right up here at the top, those breakdowns again, I would expect those numbers to include room for weddings and for funerals, for small groups that meet during the week, for your youth group that meets on Sunday night or Wednesday night. Again, this is all assuming our normal, regular pre-pandemic times, right? So just be really mindful that that average weekly attendance number should include anything that happens within the life of your church. So before I head over to the interior part of our website, I want to show you this How It Works page. We have a couple of really fantastic infographics that were just created by our multimedia specialist. So feel free to take a look at those. The How It Works video that we showed at the beginning, that's also available here on this page. And then this page also gives just a couple of bullet points overviewing each of the different license types. So this How It Works page might be really helpful for you. You'll also notice that our FAQ page is linked here, which is also in the footer of our website. So you can access tons and tons and tons of information between the external portion of our website and then also on the blog as well, just tons of stuff. All right, I'll pause here. Katie, I welcome your questions.
Wonderful. Everybody's doing great. We've got some really, really great questions. So we have a license holder who's trying to determine if they have the right type of license. And I know you were just on the options and prices page. So their live stream is unlisted. So there's no content available on YouTube, but the link is sent to the congregation and it is posted on their church's webpage. All the music that they use, they list on that webpage with the license permissions. So they're curious what license is the best for them.
Absolutely. So if you're including the music, if you're including actual text or melody line downloadable images, right? If you're creating those in any capacity and putting those in addition to the stream, then you're going to want our bundle license, the annual reprint plus podcast streaming license bundle. So that's the one that's featured here. This is the one that gives you permission, again, to not only create worship aids, or again, that volleyball analogy, whatever works best for you and your organization, but it also allows you to post your services online. Whether the video is unlisted or not, it's still on the internet. It's still outside of the 4 walls or 8 walls maybe of your sanctuary. So it's really important to have licensing that covers those additional internet hosting sites. Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, Zoom, how we're on today, whatever it happens to be, you're going to need a podcast streaming license for that. And you can purchase those in 2 ways, either the limited podcast streaming license, which is further down here on the page. It's going to allow you to just post your service. So thinking about having like a camera, like a recording in the back of the sanctuary, recording the service and uploading it. If that's all you're doing, you can have the limited podcast streaming license. But if you happen to be posting any type of music or text on the web, you have to include those reprint permissions.
Thank you so much, Brenna. That's really helpful. We actually have a lot of questions about reporting and tips and tricks. So I think that you will probably speak to a lot of those when you go over the internal aspects of our website.
Okay, sounds good. I will head there now. I want to point out that we're very transparent about what we cover and what we don't cover. So from the homepage, whether you're logged in or not, if you were to type in a title, it would pull up results for you if we happen to cover that song in our catalog. I'll also mention that taking a look at the copyright holder is the most important piece to confirm whether a work is covered under our service or not. So of course, I'm thinking of Bernadette Farrell's Christ Be Our Light by OCP. So OCP is a premier member publisher. They're co-owners of the company along with GIA. Of course, this title is included. And of course, you can download it from a variety of different resources as well, because the folks at OCP do a really good job at making sure that those image files are available for you. So if you want to take a look at a piece of music, for example, you can click on the preview link. You can take a look and see what it physically looks like. Is this the version that you're looking for? Sometimes there are songs that include descant, right? Or you want the layout to be in a certain way. So you can take a look at all of these different preview images and see what's available for you. You'll notice that I'm pulling up a GIA resource now, Gather 3rd edition. So the publishers use different fonts. This is what I was talking about earlier, right? So you may prefer one publisher's font over another. So you can take a look at those preview images. And then when you ultimately decide what you're looking for, you can click on the TIFF, the PDF, the GIF, the text. There's all kinds of file formats that you can choose to download the content. And then when you actually go to report your usage, which I recommend doing on a weekly basis, you're welcome to report monthly. And I'll let you know that the system reports 12 weeks in the past and 6 weeks into the future. So you could ultimately do quarterly, but you don't want to miss a week. So really, really important that you're logging in. My recommendation, pick a day a month that happens to be on the slower side. There are no slower days right now. I know that, but perhaps the 4th Friday of the month happens to be a good day for you to just log in, take 20 minutes, report your usage for the whole month, and then you'll be good to go and you can check it off of your list. When you click on this report button, you will notice that you have a couple of different options, not only for the weeks. So we happen to be down here in this specific week, week 4, February 4th to February 10th. So we can go as far back right now as November 12th. So if you happen to have not reported your usage for Advent or Christmas, now would be a great time for you to do that. And then you can go as far forward as March 24th. So all the way almost up to Triduum. So definitely be mindful of the week that you're reporting in. And then from there, you'll want to indicate the number of services that it was used for. Our brand new feature, my friends, that we just launched very recently is for you to then indicate the type of license that you used the piece for. So for example, Christ Be Our Light, it's a congregational piece. It was probably included as a podcast stream for all of your congregation to sing. Maybe you're allowed to have a minimum capacity. You're allowed to have 20% capacity, for example, of people that were physically inside of your sanctuary too, again, in these strange pandemic times that we're living in. So I would indicate this piece as a reprint and podcast because it's physically happening in both spaces. If this was an organ prelude, for example, you can indicate podcast only because the permissions are going out onto the internet and that's it, right? There's nothing to reprint for the congregation. Or reprint only if you happen to only be hosting services physically in person and not posting them online, then that reprint only piece is going to be really important for you. So if we click reprint and podcast and then we click send and view report, we'll be able to pull up the given week that we're working on. And then you'll notice that we can edit the titles also here by clicking on this pencil icon. So for example, if I wanted to make sure that this piece was podcast only and we used it for one service, I can submit that edit and then that will edit itself on my manage reporting usage page. Okay, so really important piece here to be specific about the type of license that you are using it for so we can ensure that those royalties are distributed appropriately. Another thing that I want to bring your attention to here, this browse by mass setting feature. If you search the word mass in our database, it's kind of just like Google. It's going to pull up potentially millions of results. So I absolutely recommend when you're looking for an entire mass setting that you click on this browse by mass setting feature. If you are able I'm going to do a little command find here for the word joy. So I'm thinking of the mass of joy and peace. If this is just a really hard list for you to scroll through, do a little command find if you're able to do that on your keyboard, and then you'll be able to highlight words and find them faster. So if I was to click on the mass of joy and peace here, Tony Alonso's mass, I will see the entirety of the mass setting on one page. Then I don't have to search for words like mass or alleluia or holy, 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 which can pull up, again, lots and lots and lots of results. Even if you were to narrow that by the composer's name, you would still pull up all of their mass settings. So really great option to browse by mass settings, pull up everything that you're looking for, and then indicate those reports individually. Okay, another way that I can show you how to search for different results, you can type in the psalm number. So for example, if you're using Psalm 103, you can kind of use this a little bit as a planning tool. We don't typically refer to ourselves as a planning tool, but in case that concept is helpful for you, you'll be able to search by psalm number that way. You can also then narrow it down. Jeanne Cotter's version of Psalm 103 is what I'm thinking of. So you can search and narrow that down by the composer's name as well. So lots of options for how you can specify what exactly you're looking for. One other reporting feature that I will offer here is searching by hymnal resource. So I mentioned earlier that our member publishers all participate in different ways. Some of them post their image files, some of them index their hymnals. It's really up to them as to what their level of participation on the website looks like. So for example, if you're looking for a song and the hymnal happens to be indexed on the website, then this is really easy. You just type in the name of the hymnal and then the number, the page number that it is, and you get one result. It's a piece of cake. But for example, I know that this resource does not have 2,000 pages, So if I was to type 2000, I'll indicate that there's no search results, right? So another option that you might want to do in that case is to search by title instead. So always, always, always recommend searching by title. Not every member publisher indexes their resources, but I think it's really important for you all to be able to have different ways of searching, which is why we have that option available. Katie, I'll pause here. I know that we're going to go over more my account information, welcome packets, and all that jazz, but I know that the reporting element is super important for folks. So was that helpful?
I think that was absolutely really helpful. I wonder if it might be helpful to talk a little bit more than you already have about the list features. We have a lot of questions about, when I'm looking for a hymn and there are 3 or 4 choices that all look very similar to the page in my hymnal, how do I know which one? And then when I finally found it, how do I keep that in my account so I know to use that one again next time?
Okay, great points. And I'll show 2 different ways that you can think about this. So under the report usage page, and then if you click on a specific week that you want to manage, you'll notice that there are some quick reporting tools that are here. So if there's a song that you use quite often, you'll likely see it under your recently reported list. You also might see it under your most often reported. So those are tabulated in different ways. But another option, and this is what Katie started talking about, is this idea of reporting titles from a list. So a lot of our organizations happen to have some type of supplemental hymnal. So it's easiest for them to tell their congregation to pull out their blue folders and open it to page 12. And it happens to have that song that's really popular at their congregation, right? So if it's easier for you to create a community songbook list or any other list, an Advent list, a Lent list, you can create it for your confirmation services. And then year after year, you know the music that you used, even if the date of your confirmation service changed, right? You can go back in time and see what you reported from May 1st, but you might not necessarily remember that that's the date that your confirmation service was. So having a list indicating the different season or indicating the different celebration that you have might be a really great option for you. I'll also mention too that if you are searching by a specific song, so we were taking a look at some of these earlier. Let me type in One Bread, One Body. You'll notice that there is a gray SKU number that's listed next to the song. So this one, it's a number sign 806703. 806703. If it's easier for you to remember the SKU numbers or the song ID numbers instead of remembering the titles, that might also be a really, really big help to you. Thanks for that question, Katie.
Absolutely. That's really helpful. Would you also be able to talk a little bit about practice track reporting and how that's different? We have a lot of questions about practice track usage and how to appropriately make sure that what I'm sending to my choir is being reported correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that that member publisher or that copyright holder participates in the practice track license. So the vast majority, the overwhelming majority do, but you'll want to look at this practice track blue kind of button here listed underneath our member publishers to see if they participate. And then if they do, when you are reporting your titles, you'll see that there's this drop down here for report tracks. So you'll have your titles listed here in the past if you wanted to reference them at all or if you needed to edit them at all. But let me just go ahead and type in, let me use All Are Welcome. We're all familiar with it. What you can do is, of course, you can narrow your search results too, if that's a little bit easier for you. So All Are Welcome, Marty Haugen, this is the piece that I'm thinking of. I'll want to make sure that I am choosing non-commercial self-made. So self-made just means that I sat down at my piano and I played out the part for my cantor to learn or for my choir to learn. And then I then distributed that title to them, whether that's an MP3, whether that's an actual actual burned CD. There's lots of options. Again, that volleyball analogy for what the actual information, the song can look like. But in terms of the reporting process, you'll indicate the type of recording that you made, the number of copies. So let's say that I have a choir of 10 folks. I then click report, and then I can view my report. If there are titles that you're not finding here that you think should be there for whatever reason, send us an email. We're happy to follow up with our member publishers and just get a little bit more information for you. Alternatively, you can submit a recording submission as well, and those are reviewed just like manual submissions.
That's really helpful, Brenna. Thank you so much. I think that is pretty good for this section, so I will turn it back over to you.
Okay, very good. So just one more quick section that we can talk about before we move into some of our special offerings and then into our Q&A. If you need to edit any of your account information, of course, you can email us at any time and we're very happy to help. But you can also edit your information under your My Account section too. So for example, if you wanted to take a look at the users that were listed on your account, if you wanted to edit the number of default setting services that you have, if you wanted to take a look at your address or your telephone information, you can do all of that from this My Account tab. And I'll also bring your attention to this licenses tab. So remember earlier when I said that the one piece of information I wanted you to leave with was that justice component, setting up a repeatable routine for yourself so you can report your usage. The other piece that I want you to leave with is being able to download a copy of your welcome packet. It has the most important information that you can pass along to the users on your account. You can also have them log in and they can download a copy themselves as well. But when you're taking a look at the license type, you can click on this green arrow and then you can click send welcome packet. You're going to send a welcome packet to all of your users. And then those will land in everybody's email inboxes and it'll give you a little success message up there as well. You can also download a copy of a practice track license if you happen to have that license type. The welcome packets are different for each license type. So that's why it's really important. The terms are different. The helpful instructions are different. So it's important to download the license welcome packet appropriately for the kind that you're looking for. So just a couple of other things that I want to mention in the short time that we have left. Like I said, folks, drinking from a fire hose. There's so much information. And if you missed me acknowledging in the beginning that I know that I talk fast, I know that about myself. It's just so I can be respectful and mindful of your time because I know how busy we all are, especially right now in this season. If you need additional information on any issues such as our group licenses or creating those supplemental hymnals, perhaps you are really curious about our Spotlight series that has different member publishers that we happen to work with. You can search for all of that on our blog. So our blog is news.onelicense.net, news.onelicense.net. Put the word news in front of our web address, and then you can search for a variety of different topics. I want to highlight this one in particular right here, understanding video analytics and online attendance. Really, really fantastic article from Sierra, our multimedia specialist. She went down a research rabbit hole, my friends, on how to report different how to view, I should say, different analytics for the different websites. So YouTube and Facebook are our two most websites that most of our users use. Just absolutely tons of helpful information in here about video analytics. Or if you want to nerd out a little bit and you want to read through that, I found it especially helpful. If you happen to be interested in one of our group licenses, so our group licenses cover an entire group quite literally. So whether that's a diocesan office, whether that's a school district, if it's a connection of summer camps, any type of group that has some type of legal entity that combines them, we can offer a group license and some really generous discounts for that. We just welcomed the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. We also welcomed the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C., Jefferson City, lots of folks last year. So we're absolutely thrilled that there is a group license component in those major cities. And there's also added accountability and added education that comes along with it too. So it's really fantastic. Search the word group. I recommend going down here, clicking on this robust features of group licenses. It's a really helpful blog post. The last thing that I want to leave you with here before we transition to our Q&A, if you are brand new to all of this and you just want a quick 5-minute video that tells you where to start, right? Super, super, super helpful. 5-minute long video of the things that you can do today, literally today, in order to make sure that you are copyright compliant for the year forward. Take a look at this black and white picture here, simple steps towards copyright compliance. I know Sierra has been fantastic about including links in the chat, so I know that this one's coming too. Take a look at this post. It is so helpful. I cannot overstate it enough. Couple of things that you can do today to ensure that your copyright compliance is in check for the year to come. All right, Katie, I will hand it over to you for our more formal Q&A. And then if there are additional questions, folks, again, that we aren't able to get to today, feel free, send us an email. We're more than happy to help.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Brenna. Luckily, I think a lot of folks are on the same wavelength, so we've got a lot of similar questions. So I would actually love to hear from Sierra and or Brenna on this one. We have a lot of folks asking about some best practices that they could follow to avoid those nasty claims and strikes and issues with YouTube and Facebook. What can we do? What can you recommend for us, Sierra?
Yeah, it's a sticky process, and I'm looking forward to one day chatting with YouTube more about this issue.
Me too.
We highly recommend that you include your license information in your video or in your description. I say add it in both to help with these copyright claims that are coming up on YouTube. YouTube has a lot of bots that are searching for similar sounds, which will match a commercial recording, which of course, One License does not cover commercial recordings, which is why you're getting those claims. I like to say that you just sound too good, which is a great problem to have. So yes, continue to include your copyright information in your description, as well as in a slide in your video, if you can do that as well.
Wonderful. That's really helpful. Thank you, Sierra. Another one similar to this, either Sierra or Brenna, funeral homes have been bringing in their own cameras in order to live stream funeral masses for folks who can't join in person. Are the funeral homes responsible for that, or should our church be responsible for that? And maybe our church doesn't even have a live streaming license. Then what do we do?
Yeah, great question. These are all great questions. And like I said in the beginning, these are all newer and more unique questions because of the pandemic. If there is any, there are no positives, but if there is any artistic positive to this awful season that we are in, it's that folks are coming up with so many different creative ways to connect with their organizations and their congregations. It's just amazing. And I continue to be in awe of all of you. As long as one of the entities holds the license, that's where we want to start. So one would argue that if the event is happening at one location, but it's sponsored by a separate location. So for example, the church, the priest, their parishioner, but they happen to then be at this funeral home. As long as one of those entities has a license, at the end of the day, we're going to be pleased with that. But I would argue that if the funeral home is posting the video, that the funeral home should have the license, right? They're the ones who have access to the number. They're the ones who can report their usage appropriately. They know the number of people that they're reaching through that Facebook page, for example. If the service is happening at a funeral home, but it's being posted on the church's website, it might be more appropriate for the church to have the license. So again, as long as one of the two have it, we're going to be pretty generally happy. But I want to think about the way that the license is actually being used and who would need to be able to log in, report usage, use the number, and that kind of stuff. Sierra, would you add anything to that?
No, I fully agree with what you were saying. Whoever's posting that video should have a license with us.
Wonderful. Thank you both for that. I wonder if you could talk, Brenna, a little bit about folks who are having trouble finding instrumental, especially piano and organ titles in our database, and fill us in a little on what our publishers are trying to do to get those added.
Yeah, they're doing their best. I think like all of us, surviving is thriving right now, my friends. So I know that many of our member publishers are working really hard to prioritize uploading works that can be used for the podcast streaming licenses. I'm thinking of those instrumental and choral works. You also, in a way, have to understand that for a lot of these member publishers, this is a brand new world for them, right? Like maybe they had their top 10 or their top 20 titles that were available in their song catalogs previously. And now there are tens of thousands of folks that are posting their services online. So the demand is just overwhelming. So continue to submit manual submissions, continue to email us if you have questions. At the end of the day, the member publishers are responsible and have the information to know what can be shared on the website and what can't. We're the agent, they're the information. We host the information, they give us the information. So send us an email, send us a manual submission. We're happy to help and take a look at that for you. But just know that everyone is assuming best intentions right now, and our member publishers are human beings too, and they're doing their very best.
Wonderful, thank you. I think we have time for just a couple more questions. We've got a lot of questions about public domain. So for the most part, we seem to know that we don't need to report those, but we've noticed that some of them are in our database. And so if it's in there, should I report it? Does it matter if I'm live streaming versus using something in an in-person service? How do we navigate this field of public domain?
Yeah, of course, if it's totally and completely public domain, which is typically 70 years after the death of the author, 70, then there's no need for you to report it. But if there is a living composer who did an arrangement of the piece, then that would be really important for you to go ahead and report. You'll notice that since our member publishers add their hymnal resources to the website, I'm thinking of Silent Night, for example, there's all kinds of image files for a Silent Night that you can download and use. And I think that's just, maybe an attaboy from the member publishers that they want you to be able to have a copy of that music, have it in the font maybe that you prefer, have access to it, but you don't need to report it. If you happen to report it, it will go nowhere. So you're not doing anything wrong by clicking report. If that's part of your routine, it's just fine. And on the back end, we're aware of how PD titles are set up in our system. So no harm, no foul.
Perfect, thank you. All right, I've got one more for you that we do get this one by our Zendesk tickets quite often. I'm not able to find my hymnal on the list. Why is that? And can I still report hymns that are included just from a hymnal that is on your list?
Absolutely, yes. So if you have a hymnal that's not indexed on our service, that doesn't mean that you can't use titles from all kinds of other resources. When you have a license with us, you have access to all 100,000 titles. So just because you have the ELW, for example, doesn't mean that you're limited to just the titles that are in the ELW. All 100,000 are available to you. It goes back to what I was saying earlier about the different levels of participation from our member publishers. So some of them are very adamant about making sure that their resources are available, especially those with yearly or annual resources. I'm thinking of like Breaking Bread, for example. That data is being updated every single year. If you don't see your hymnal listed, always search by title. It's totally and entirely possible that the title data is there, maybe even an image, but adding hymnal information is a whole other level of member publisher participation. So just being mindful of the different ways that our member publishers participate in the service.
Wonderful, thank you, Brenna. I think that will be really, really helpful for a lot of folks. So I would just like to thank you all so very much for asking such excellent questions. If we weren't able to get to your specific question today, please do send us an email at info@onelicense.net, or go ahead and log into your account and submit your question through the contact link in the upper right-hand corner. We're very happy to help, and we'll do our best to get back to you quickly and give you the answer to anything that you can dream up.
Thank you, Katie. I appreciate it. Sierra, is there anything else that you wanted to add, or anything that you're seeing in the chat, or ways that folks can get access to those blog links after we close out?
Yeah, just, I mean, news.onelicense.net. I'm telling you, that's going to be your best friend moving forward. I saw a lot of questions about online attendance, and that first blog post is really going to help you. So check that out.
Thank you, Sierra. I appreciate it. And thank you, Katie. I sincerely appreciate both of your hard work. I'm just absolutely thrilled that you're here. Folks, if you missed the prelude video in the beginning, stick around for a few minutes. We're going to keep the webinar open and we'll play that for you. But I think more than anything, just on a personal note, I just want to thank you so much. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for asking great questions. It really and truly is a privilege and an honor to partner with you. We are here in the trenches with you this year as we navigate ourselves through this new world that we're finding ourselves in. So your questions don't scare us. Some of us are copyright nerds, I'll speak for myself. And we really and truly are just here to help and to do our best to do so. So we will post the webinar on the blog in the next couple of days. All of the information that was in the prelude video, we created a big PDF of that information as well. So Katie will make sure that that's up on the blog for you. So really and truly, there is no end, my friends, of all of the educational information that you can have access to. If you happen to have any feedback for us, positive, constructive, otherwise, we're always happy to hear that too. Send us an email. It would certainly help us in our future webinars. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. And really and truly, I wish you health and good things ahead for you and your ministries. Take care, everybody.